All right. Hi, I'm Anna Hoffman, and welcome to this episode of Data Exposed. It's a very exciting episode because we are hosted here live at SQLBits. Can my audience prove that there's people here? Can you give like a clap? Awesome. So it's exciting to be here in person. We're also streaming on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and to Learn TV. So from wherever you're joining us today, we welcome you to Data Exposed, this Azure SQL news updates. We have lots of special guests planned to be here today. So we are going to get right into the show. Maybe. All right, we're going to start with some product updates. We have lots of product updates across Azure SQL. We're going to start with Azure SQL Database. You see a couple things that have landed here in preview as well as in general availability. And instead of me talking about each of these items, I'm going to bring up Emily Lisa, a program manager on the Azure SQL Database team, to tell us more about it. So please welcome Emily. Yay.
Hi, Anna. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. Yeah, so we have a lot of really exciting updates for Azure SQL Database. And the first one that I'd like to talk about is maintenance windows. So this is a feature that we are announcing general availability for Azure SQL Database and Managed Instance. And this will be generally available in mid-March. And so what this is that we regularly perform planned maintenance for Azure SQL Database and Managed Instance. And while your databases are available during this time, they are subject to a brief period of reconfiguration. And so for your databases that might be really sensitive to these brief periods of reconfiguration, this will allow you to specify when this would happen. So it could happen not during the peak hours for your workload. So we have three options that you can pick for your maintenance windows. There's the default configuration. There's also weekdays. So if your workloads are heavily run on weekends, you can choose for this to happen during weekdays instead. And there's also a weekend option for the opposite scenario where you might have heavily run workloads over the weekdays. This reconfiguration would happen over the weekend instead. With this, there's also still in public preview advanced notifications where you can get notified when these maintenances are going to happen. So you'd get a 24-hour notice before the maintenance would occur, also notification at the start of maintenance, and also at the completion of maintenance.
Awesome. This is really exciting, Emily. Thanks. One question I have, just to confirm, this is available for DB and MI or just DB or?
Yeah, it's available for both DB and MI. If you want more details on the exact configurations that are supported, we have more information about that in our documentation as well.
Awesome, cool. And shameless plug, we'll have a blog that has all the links to the stuff Emily talks about. All right, Emily, what else you got?
Great, yeah, so that's our first exciting announcement. The next one is the general availability of storage redundancy for the hyperscale tier. Now, we now support in GA 3 redundancy options for hyperscale database, and this applies for hyperscale to both your data files as well as your backup storage. So your three options are local redundancy, which would mean that your backup and data files would be locally redundant within a data center. Zone redundant, where your data and backup files are going to be replicated between the availability zones, Azure region, and then geo-redundant, which is currently the default configuration for hyperscale. And that would have your backup and data files replicated to another Azure region as well. That is the only configuration that you can use for geo-restore capabilities, but local and zone redundant configurations are good to consider if you maybe have some data residency concerns where you want to make sure that all of your data is within one Azure region. So each of these have different specific pricing information. If that's something you're interested in learning more about, please visit our pricing pages.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. It's pretty exciting to see this. This is something that was available for other service tiers, now it's available, or other deployment options, but now it's available for hyperscale. I know there's a lot of other things happening in this space. What else is happening for hyperscale?
Great question, Anna. We also have another announcement for hyperscale, which is the public preview for the zone redundant configuration for hyperscale. And so with this, what we do is this makes your hyperscale database resilient to the next level of issues where you can have zone level protection. So Azure regions with availability zones, these are physically separate zones within an Azure region where there's separate powering, cooling, networking. The idea is if something happens to one availability zone in a region, the other zones should not be affected. And so what we do is we ensure that all layers of your hyperscale database are replicated between the availability zones within your region to make sure you have that full AZ level resiliency for hyperscale. So what you'll see is that the compute layer, the page servers, the storage, and log are all fully zone resilient if you choose to use this configuration. A few things to note is that this can only be specified at database creation. So if you want to enable this for an existing hyperscale database, we suggest you go through an option such as database copy, point-in-time restore, or creating a new geo-replica. Additionally, with specifying this configuration, you must have at least one high availability compute replica, and you also must specify using zone redundant storage like we talked about in the previous slide.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Emily, for these updates. Are there any other updates in the Azure SQL space?
These are the main ones for business continuity, but I believe that there's still a lot of other really exciting things that we are talking about today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Emily. Thanks for coming on the show and coming to SQLBits with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Anna.
All right. Awesome. Cool. We got a lot of updates. Looks like our slides also have a mind of their own. They seem to be advancing without notice. The next area we want to talk about is Azure SQL Managed Instance. We got a lot of updates in this space. Like Emily mentioned, we have maintenance windows also generally available for Azure SQL Managed Instance as of yesterday or today. And in preview for Azure SQL Managed Instance, if you saw the keynote, there's a lot of exciting things happening in this space. One of those exciting things is MI Link. So I'm going to bring up Danny from the Managed Instance team to show us a little demo and tell us a little bit more about it. Thanks so much, Danny.
Hey, thanks, Anna. Thanks, appreciate it. Hi, folks. My name is Danny Lepava. I'm from the Managed Instance product group. I've been there since day one, since Managed Instance launched in November 2018. And I'd like to talk about MI Link, the feature that we have just released this week in an open public preview. So what is it? How does it work? We essentially were thinking of how to connect SQL Server Managed Instance and how to make that hybrid connectivity work. We have leveraged the proven existing availability groups knowledge, and we have leveraged DAG on top of it, distributed availability, which enables two AGs, one on the SQL Server side, the other on the MI side, to be connected together, which allows near real-time data replication from SQL Server to the cloud. So this hybrid link enables you to have your data move to the cloud without actually migrating to the cloud. You can use the services in the cloud, reporting, analytics, ML services, and then you can run the link for as long as you'd like, weeks and months at a time. And then only when you're ready, there's an example of an application using the read-only and read-write workload. And then when you're ready, you could migrate to the cloud. And this is probably the fastest and the simplest minimum downtime migration that we have to the cloud today. So really, it offers the flexibility to you to consume the cloud, to consume Managed Instance at your own pace. More information at the link provided below. And quickly, I will now go into a demo. I think that we can see SQL 2019 in here. MI demo database, we see an MI with no databases. And with the release of SSMS 18.11.1 this week, we're making it now possible to make the link between the two. I'm now verifying that this is SQL Server 2019. Right-click on the database. I go replicate database. That's a new feature. For now, for SQL Server 2019 with CU15 and SQL Server 2022 CTP. If you have those two, 2022 is available through early access program. Then with the download of the SMS, you can use it. We then verified that all the pre-checks are in there. They have all the requirements. Then you select a database. You can select multiple databases at a time. Then the next thing you need to do is you log into Azure. Now what's going to happen is that the system is now pulling the list of my subscriptions and managed instances that I can make the link with. I need to make sure that I have the right resource group, and then I pick the managed instance that I want to replicate my database or databases to. The final step here is to log into managed instance, and that's because we need to execute commands on both ends to make the link possible. Now that I'm logged in, I click next. On the next screen, we set up the availability group settings. For novice users, you would just click next, but for advanced users, you would consider to customize these things. We use certificate-based authentication, which you can customize in this section here. You can customize your IP address as well. And that is important. For example, if you have multiple IP addresses on your SQL Server, you need to specify the one that is exposed to Azure that has connectivity with the managed instance. Then on the last step in these advanced settings, you can choose the name of your availability group and distribute availability group name. And by the way, we do not have a requirement that you need to have an AG or Windows Server failover cluster. We create that for you. So you can or might not have that, but it's all going to be automated for you. So it's simple for all kinds of users. Here I have generated the script, which you can use it to customize your settings. You can see from the script everything is being executed. Now we're running through the process. We're exchanging some security certificates here to establish the trust between the on-prem and Azure. Once the trust is established, there are the availability and distributed availability groups showing up on the SQL Server side. And then as step MI is now joining that link. I'm doing refreshes here on the database, and there it is. We're restoring this database. We have automatic seeding, which starts at first. We basically copy the content of the database over. We have also provided in our scripts a query to monitor the seeding status. So here I see that it's seeding. We see it's waiting for the restore to finish. So it's only doing this for the first time until the entire DB is being copied over. We see some stats in terms of megabytes being transferred. And because I have a really small database, I think it's going to be done soon. Yep, it's completed. So now every transaction that's committed on the primary in the SQL Server is instantaneously transferred near real time on the MI. And any transactions that I commit on the SQL Server, they're automatically shown on the managed instance. For the demo of that, so here I'm showing that's the link that we made. And then I will show a demo with some data. What I have prepared is a Power BI that now reads the report of the MI of the read-only secondary. So this is replicated data. Now I'm going to go back to the SQL Server, and I'm going to insert some new rows onto the SQL Server, onto the primary, and I expect those rows to be replicated near real time to the secondary, to managed instance. And to have proof of that, I need to refresh the Power BI report, and I will see that the lines will change. I will have an update in there, this part here that was not existing before. So that's how easy it is to set up the link and have your data lifted and shifted to the cloud. Here, I'm proud that here at SQLBits, we're announcing public availability. These are the requirements that you need. The latest SSMS released this week, 2019 Enterprise Edition or Dev Edition. Actually, I didn't mention it here, but it works with Dev Edition as well. CU15, 2022 managed instance, and you're good to go. Use the link below for more details. You can also engage with the product group, and thanks very much, folks, for listening. Any questions I can answer after the session. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Danny. All right, lots of announcements, lots of things going on. We still have, I think, 4 guests coming up, at least 4. So it's a busy show that we have going. We're going to get right into the next one. So we talked about Azure SQL Database. We talked about Azure SQL Managed Instance. The last, but certainly not least, in the Azure SQL family is SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machines. And for that, I'm going to bring up Pam to tell us about what's new. Welcome, Pam. I'll give it to you.
Thanks, Anna. Good to see you in person, by the way. It's awesome. We're having so much fun here at Bits. Glad you guys could join us. Let's see here. Slide. All right. So we've had a number of updates to SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine over the past couple of months, starting in December. We made some enhancements to automated backup, increase the retention for your backups, also give you the ability to specify a target container for your automated backups. We've had a number of marketplace image enhancements. We made some changes to the storage configuration that you can use during deployment and even after your virtual machines have been deployed to manage things like TempDB configuration and ability to move your system databases onto a data drive off the C drive. Also the ability to manage, for example, the number of TempDB files that you have even after deployment. And the most exciting thing I wanted to talk about is the SQL Best Practices Assessment, which Anna announced yesterday went to general availability. And this is a way for you to run an assessment against your SQL servers and Azure virtual machines and check them for all of the best practices that we know about. It's a rules-based assessment that validates your configuration and alerts you to any potential issues that you may have that could cause either a risk to stability or to performance or things like that. And we have rules that are specific to SQL Server, but we also have rules that are unique to SQL Server running in an Azure virtual machine that will help you keep your virtual machine healthy. So let me, how do I, sorry.
You on the screen.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Is it okay if I just use this? It's probably easier than that other mouse. All right, so what I have on the screen here is my SQL virtual machine portal. And I want to show you, actually, let's see if I can move this. Where am I? Sorry, Anna, it's not. Am I? Where's the, yeah, I can't see the mouse. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, sorry, guys. I'm learning to mouse today, apparently. Okay, so this is an example of the overview blade of the SQL virtual machine management interface in the portal. And in here, one of the things you might notice is I've got a list of notifications here, and it's got some warnings, some even high importance warnings. These are coming from the assessment. So I have an assessment that I've run against this virtual machine, and it has found some issues I want to correct. So I'm going to come over here to the SQL Best Practices Assessment. And if you haven't tried this before in your virtual machine, you will need to enable it first, and you'll need to connect it to a log analytics workspace. So there's no charge for the best practices assessment itself, but it does require a log analytics workspace. So there will be some additional charge for log analytics, but once you connect that up, you can run these assessments either on demand or you can schedule them to run regularly. We have many of our customers in preview that set this up to like run on a Sunday night, then they come in on Monday and look at the recommendations and see if anything's changed that they need to address. So I'm going to go ahead and view my last successful assessment. And you'll see some of those same issues that we saw on the notifications window as soon as it loads. Okay, so you can see a number of rules that were fired. The green ones are passed. So there's a good number that I actually passed successfully. But then you can see there's some high, medium, low, and informational issues that I might want to take a look at. Let me scroll down. And you can see the issues that have fired, and they're going to be sorted here by severity. But you can click through this report, you can sort it, you can filter it, you can look for whatever information that you want, that you find interesting. But what I want to do is click here where it says, move TempDB files from C to the local ephemeral SSD drive. This is one of the rules that's unique to SQL Server and Azure Virtual Machine. And one of the reasons we wanted to do this is we know that a lot of you are really familiar with running SQL Server on-prem, but you may not be familiar with some of the best practices that you need to configure when you run that SQL virtual machine, when you run that virtual machine in Azure. And so this is one of those things. We recommend that you move your TempDB to the ephemeral D drive for performance reasons. And so this is telling you, hey, if you would move your TempDB to the D drive, you might see better performance. And so you'll have some, oh, everything's, sorry. No, it's okay. That's it's a lot of it's masked. You would see more information here, but you can see a little description of why this rule fired, along with a link that will give you additional information for not only why did this rule fire and why should you consider it, but also how you should fix it. Okay, so this is, I think, one of the most exciting features we've had in a while in SQL VM. So I hope that if you're running SQL Server in an Azure Virtual Machine, you'll install the SQL IaaS Agent extension so you get this portal view and try out the best practices assessment today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Pam.
Thanks, Anna.
All right. I also just want to say it's really cool to do this in person. So for those of you who don't follow Data Expos, we do this a lot, but we never do this where we're shuffling on stage. It's like, oh, let me put Emily's camera up or Danny's camera up. So it's really cool. And, we're still kind of getting into the vibe of dealing with those transitions. So thank you for bearing with us. exciting stuff. Hopefully you guys are getting a lot out of this news. Next, we want to talk about some developer-related news. Now, Silvano Coriani, maybe some of you attended his sessions virtually at SQLBits. He was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, he is not able to be here this week. But he did send me the developer-related updates that I want to take a second and show you. So there's a couple things here, and there's a lot of links. I don't want you to get overwhelmed by the links. Actually, if you want all the links from anything you've seen today, all you have to do is go to aka.ms/news-update. There is a blog posted with all the news from this month, as well as links for you to go learn more. So that's something to check out. But a couple things here to call out is with .NET 6 hot off the press, we've been doing things for Azure SQL so that process gets a little better as well. A couple other things like GraphQL, we've been working with some partners like Hasura that can help you, and we have samples available on our samples website. Additionally, Azure SQL bindings for Azure Functions. Anyone use Azure SQL Functions, Azure Functions and Azure together? A couple of people? Yeah, so basically what these SQL bindings have done have made it that much easier to connect to your Azure Functions. So you can kind of take advantage of Azure Functions without dealing with a lot of the stress and the configuration that used to be required. Some other things around Django that we're doing and other languages, we do have libraries available, of course, for all of our different languages, and some other things you might want to check out, you can check out in the blog. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick look to see if we have any questions online. Do we have any questions online in our session? Right. Let's see. So, let's see. Having some scroll issues. But looks like there are some people commenting, but we don't really have any questions, mostly just people saying hello. All right, so we're going to move right along. We got more updates and more people to come on the show. If my mouse will work, maybe. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, we talked about all the different Azure SQL flavors. We're going to hand it over to Alexandra, who's going to give us an update on all things migration. Alexandra, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much, Anna, for having me. Well, definitely migration is a hot topic because we need a road to get to Azure. No?
Yes.
So that's something that we are investing in. We have been, we are, and we will still develop all the products. We try to get as close as possible to the customer experience and make it a single button experience for everybody. Now, yeah, I got on the slides. They are cooperating today. Good. So a SQL Server migration system, it's your favorite tool when coming from heterogeneous sources, when we talk about DB2, Sybase, and of course my favorite Oracle, or even our own Atlas or MySQL. So SSMA has been released 8.24. We've done a lot of work, so probably we'll bump that version to 9 when we get bored of all the numbers. We still didn't hit the max of them, so we don't wanna try that. But there are some cool features, and in the migration space, the cool features are coming from things that we can automatically convert. I like to call the team the compiler team, the converter team, because in order to do automatic conversion, you have to build some parsers and you have to build some complicated stuff that we like. So on the conversion space, for DB2, we have the support for order by function. We also have the union all. We know that that's something that you use, especially in your queries. Oracle, all our Oracle fans, compound triggers. That's a word that I had to learn when working with Oracle. So it's there. We automatically translate it as well. We have some functions that we recently added, and we've improved the logic for central function that we have. And for MySQL, we've added the support for the year data type. So those are the latest things that you can get in 8.24. It's available for download, test it, and of course, give us some feedback. Migrations are not about heterogeneous migrations. Well, it's also about our own products, no? So SQL modernization is a hot topic, and it's something that's innovative and for the future. I'm just going to represent my colleagues here and their work in the modernization space. We have a cool extension, the ADS extension for SQL assessment and migrations. So it says coming soon, but it's a mixture. We've just released the SKU recommendation in ADS, So if you don't know the size of your target, you can definitely find that out in the SQL recommendations in ADS. But we are looking at developing CLI support, migrations from sovereign clouds, as well as a much nicer portal monitoring experience. Well, that helps us cut over and, of course, bring the database online happily ever after in Azure. Now, the second part of the screen, it's a little bit more complicated. I won't talk a little about it so much because it's brand new. It's out of our gate servers, build servers. It hasn't been published. It's something that we are working in order to improve the assessment experience, to make it easier for our customers and our users to understand what's the best target in Azure when coming from Oracle migration. And that's not a single answer question. Stay tuned. We are going to discuss it in detail, so demo it. Just give us a little bit more time. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Alexandra is a regular on Data Exposed, always coming on to show us what's new in this space. And there's always a lot of new stuff in this space. For folks at SQLBits here, I think tomorrow morning, Mohammed is doing a full session on Azure Data Studio migration extension. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, that's definitely something to check out. By the way, if you're here at SQLBits, you can find all the Microsoft sessions if you go to aka.ms/Microsoft SQLBits. So it's just all one word, Microsoft SQLBits. I'll try to get that up here. Maybe Maurice can help me. Okay, so we're going to keep moving along. There are some other database updates. So something we started doing on Data Exposed live news updates recently was including updates from other database services. So maybe not a lot of you are using Azure Database for Postgres Hyperscale here at SQLBits, but we do have a lot of folks running in production with this today. So a couple things I just want to make sure I update that are now generally available are new certifications. This also goes along with Cosmos DB, which we'll talk about in a second. New regions have been added. We've added private access support in general availability and started adding minor version support in Postgres. So this is exciting time for all of us when it comes to all the product updates that we're doing. Now, we're going to go into the next segment. So what we usually do in Data Exposed news updates is I read every single blog that comes out related to Azure SQL and SQL Server and try to pull up like, hey, these are some of the things that I saw. These are some of the updates you might want to go read. And then basically here's a laundry list of links if you want to go see some of those. So first, before we do that, I want to tell you about the Data Exposed episodes we've released this month. You can see there's been quite a few of them. We're going to bring Marisa up later to tell us all about the different series that we have on Data Exposed, but this is just an example of some of the episodes. If you're new to Data Exposed, keeping up with the news, one I might recommend is the Azure SQL News Update Year in Review. This is where we covered everything that landed in 2021 on Data Exposed across Azure SQL and SQL Server, so some of you might find that interesting. A couple other things here, like a bunch of episodes related to SQL Server 2022. David Pless, I don't think is here.
No, he's not.
He's not here, but he's on very much virtually. You can see we've done three episodes together this month, diving into really cool pieces of SQL Server 2022. Pam is also a regular on the show talking to us about Azure SQL VMs, so you can always check those out. And Bob comes on every now and then to tell us about things like migrating to Azure. All right, if you want to find all these videos, you can just subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's the link up top, aka.ms/Azure SQL YT for YouTube. Okay, so now I wanted to talk about blogs related to database in the Azure blogs. This is like the all up Azure blog. So these are some important things that have landed, not necessarily related to what you might consider Azure SQL, but important to call out. So maybe some of you were in the keynote where Evangeline talked about dynamic lineage extraction. So this is something that was announced, I believe, this week for Azure SQL Database in Azure Purview. So that's something to check out. There'll be a link to this in the blog as well as everything else. And then Microsoft Defender. Maybe some of you have used what was called Azure Defender for SQL. Well, we just keep expanding that to Microsoft Defender. So Microsoft Defender for Azure Cosmos DB is now available. So all those things that you could get, all those alerts you could get for and threat protection for your Azure SQL or SQL Server instances, you can now get for Cosmos DB. From the SQL Server blog, there were a couple new things. So we do have some updates to SQL tools on Azure. I don't have time to go into all of them, but if that's something you're interested in staying up to date with, Timmy wrote a great blog on this. Also, Bob Dorr. I had to figure out what was going on here because Bob Dorr posted like almost 100 blogs on the SQL Server. I think it was the SQL Server blog, the SQL Server Tech Community blog. So if you go and check that out, he's been hoarding some of his old blogs that have just gold mines of information. Bob Dorr's been around for a long time. Probably a lot of you are familiar with that name, but a lot of that knowledge is coming back up. So I certainly learned a lot going through some of these blogs. I gotta be honest, I didn't read every single one of them, but definitely some good studying there. Good stuff on things like SQL Server 2016, not just the new stuff, actually a lot of some of our older SQL Server versions. In the Azure SQL Tech community, you can see in the past month, we have released quite a few blogs. Just to take a look at some of them, maybe some of the titles look familiar to you. Usually when we make some sort of announcements, the program manager or lead for that feature or capability will also write an accompanying blog. So you want to get details on some of the updates you've seen this week. This is going to be a good place to go. Also, Irish mentioned some things about running a community. She did 2 blogs on that this month. You'll see advice on running a user group and the code of conduct for Azure Data Community user group leaders. So if you're involved in a user group, which I think a lot of you here are big in the community, or I would hope so, those might be interesting to you as well. And then the other one that I found interesting that I think is worth diving into if you use Azure SQL Managed Instance is improving your data loading performance with business critical. So this was written by Nico, who was here earlier in the week, not anymore. But this was written by Nico, and it's a really interesting blog about getting better storage performance. All right, I'm not going to go through all these, but I will tell you the context of what these blogs are. So at Microsoft, of course, we have a huge support team, and support team deals with a lot of different cases about a lot of different things. Now, when they see cases that come up often, a lot of times they'll write a blog about it. So this is a good one to, if you have any issues that you think might be a common issue, going to the Azure Database Support blog is usually a good place to go. I personally have learned a lot from trying to stay up to date with this blog, and you can see some folks have some series and you can learn a lot of lessons. We're up at 189 for a single individual who's been writing blogs about Azure Database Support. Okay, next we are going to, actually let me pause for a second. Does anyone have any questions about any of the updates that you've heard about or things maybe you didn't hear about that you want to hear about? Any questions online? Let's see if we have any questions over here. Let's see, just some comments. So for those of you in the audience, you can see people are commenting on our live stream. SQL Bits and Bytes, I like that. Good vibes, we'll take it. So these are some of the things we can do when we are online. +1, okay, good vibes +1. We have good vibes in here.
I think so.
Great. Maybe we'll try that again later. Okay, so we're gonna move right along. We are going to talk about data expose. You know, before I bring Marisa up here, how many of you have, you know, heard of data expose before coming to this session? A good number of people. Okay, awesome. So we're going to do, first, I just want to introduce everyone to Marisa Brazil. Maybe you don't know this, but Marisa actually runs the show. I just kind of stand over here and pretend I know what's going on. But
we'll call you the figurehead, like the queen. Well, it's appropriate. It's Queen of England, like the Queen, Anna. She's like figurehead.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. But I'm going to pass it to Marisa to tell us about data expose and some series we've done recently.
Thanks, Anna. Hi, everyone. So Data Expose, what is it? You guys are actually in Data Expose right now, so welcome to our show. Thank you. So on Data Expose, we're always on explaining topics, demonstrating features, talking about new things coming out, the latest news like this episode, and it's really related to Azure data, specifically more SQL Server and Azure SQL, and we do this through live shows like this show, and we do this through on-demand episodes. We release on-demand episodes every Thursday. We also have MVPs on our show, and they come on. We have an episode with them every Tuesday. And then we do this live show once a month. Let me get to some of the series we've done. So not only do we do all those shows, we also do some series. So you can see we've kind of been busy, and we are always coming out with new episodes for the series, but also new series topics. And we have, once we get back, we have a couple in the works that we'll start recording for. But the first one is the Something Old, Something New series. So something old meaning old technology or buckwitty, and then something new is Anna on the show, and they deep dive into data and machine learning topics, and then how it relates to SQL, which is the new part of that. Another live series is the Azure SQL Security series, and so we try to get some of the most up-to-date knowledge. We try to get some episodes around that to securely run your business, and we're always updating those with topics related to data protection, network security, those kinds of topics. And then the Azure SQL Virtual Machines Reimagined, long title. Thanks, sorry. Pam. Yeah. So Pam and David Pless and some others on their team have done a great job with this series. We have some hour-long sessions, and then we have some short 10-minute sessions, and we're constantly adding to those. I think we added one this month. So if you want to get the latest on what's going on with Azure SQL Virtual Machines, how to architect, deploy, manage, join, or follow that playlist. So some mini series. These are on-demand episodes. These are kind of, we call them snackable 5 to 8 minute episodes. We did one with Silvano last year with real-time operational analytics. So you can kind of explore Azure SQL opportunities and capabilities in that series. We also have a migrating to SQL series, and Alexandra was part of that. You'll see her on a lot of those episodes. We have a Azure SQL Edge series, Azure SQL Virtual Machine series. I've kind of mentioned that one above. Those kind of work hand in hand. And then we have a SQL Server 2022 series, and David Pless just added a lot of episodes to that. As new features and parts of and things get announced with SQL Server 22, we'll be adding episodes to that. And the last thing that I want to mention, and we're kind of talking about doing this again, I don't want to ruin anything, but last year we had a special with ADF, and we brought both communities together, the Azure SQL community and the Azure Data Factory community together, and we ran a 24-hour event covering all the time zones, and it was fun to get the community involved and get those features together. I think that is all for now. That was a lot, but again, quick plug for our show. We're always looking for topics and ideas, and anytime you watch our videos, please comment, let us know what you like and what you don't like, and I think we're good. Awesome, thank you.
So Marisa, if Anna's the queen, are you the prime minister?
There you go. I'm something.
Just for folks who didn't hear that, Pam said, does that make Marisa the prime minister? we'll be over here shooting The Crown sometime soon. Data Expose The Crown version coming soon. Hey, we never know how these things are going to go. I think we managed to pull this off a little bit well. We went a little bit quickly, so we do have time. Before we kind of wrap, and I'll just open this up for any questions. So this is a good opportunity because what you have in here is people from all sects of the Azure SQL and SQL Server teams. But I want to thank you all for tuning in, and I'll put up this feedback slide and mention that the blog is live now. So anything you want, you can go to aka.ms/news-update. Like Marisa mentioned, we do this every month. So that means next month, around the first week, usually we do it on Wednesdays, but around the first week of the month, you can go to aka.ms/news-updates. There will be a new blog. So we try to keep that kind of easy for you to remember. It looks like we've got some prime mini series of Data Expose, some comments coming through on our stream. So with that, and then this QR code, please give us feedback. This is something new. And yes, we have a question. I'm going to bring you the mic if that's okay.
On the links that we're showing below, the link for virtual machine reimagined and mini series was the same. Was that intended?
Yes, that's a great question. So just for those folks online, the Virtual Machines Reimagined series and the mini series are the same link because they're essentially the same series. The difference is that we had these 1 hour live episodes, which were more really heavy deep dives. And then we also have shorter episodes. We kind of put them all in a playlist together, and you guys can decide which one you want to focus on. But that's a great question. Other questions? Any questions? Remember, you got managed instance represented, SQL VMs represented, Azure SQL database represented, Azure migrations representative. Any questions that you guys might have? Take a look online. I'm not sure what that is.
Mind blown.
Oh, mind blown. And I think this is the link. Marissa, is this the link to the? Yep.
For the folks online, did you mention Saturday's free events, right? They can attend virtually.
Oh, that's a great call. Thank you, Cam. For folks online, something to keep in mind is that if you're not at SQLBits, which everyone here is, but Saturday is actually a free version, or the free part of SQLBits, so you can stream that online for free. I think you'd probably just go to SQLBits.com. You have to register. You have to register at SQLBits.com, and then you can attend for free online on Saturday. So we hope to see you there. There's a lot of great sessions happening. We mentioned a couple of them throughout this session. If there are no questions, then we will end the sessions. We'll all kind of stick around to the end of the session. So if you have more questions, feel free to come up to any of us individually or find us within the rest of the conference. Again, I just want to thank you all for being so patient. I know this is like a weird thing to stream live and in person, but it's something we're doing. You know, this is only the second time we've done this, so it's an experience. So again, if you fill out the feedback, it really helps us figure out, like, should we do this? Should we do it differently? What do you think? But yeah, I just want to thank you all, and we hope to see you next time on Data Exposed.